Hello everybody. Our lecture today includes experience of communicative language teaching and thinking about the experience. First, the teacher greets the class and distributes a handout. There is writing on both sides. On one side is a copy of a sports column from a recent newspaper. The reporter is discussing the last World Cup competition. Here we have a very important point, which is the use of authentic material. Authentic material is one of the ideas that distinguishes the communicative approach from other approaches. That is, the teacher presents a language material which is related to real life situations. Communicative language teaching advocates the use of authentic language materials in order to expose students to natural language in a variety of situations. So it is very important to make the students use language in meaningful situations and in a material which is related to real life situations. Next, the teacher asks the students to turn to the other side of the handout. On it are all sentences of the article that they have been working on. They are, however, out of order. For example, the first two sentences on this side of the handout are Argentina may have an outside chance, and the final analysis, the winning team may simply be the one with the most experience. The teacher tells the students to unscramble the sentences. That is, to put them in their proper order by numbering them. The sentences are given in a different order from the original text. The students are supposed to arrange the sentences in the same way as they are arranged in the original text or in the article according to their understanding of the content of the article by giving the sentences numbers. The teacher then asks the students if they agree with the reporter's prediction. Here, the students are given the chance to use the target language to express their points of view, to express their agreement. In this case, they are given the opportunity to communicate with each other and with the teacher using the target language. He also asks them to get into pairs and to write their own prediction about who will be the next World Cup champion. In this case, we have the idea of pair work. In communicative language teaching, we have different patterns of organization or of organizing the students' work. We have individual work, pair work, and group work. The selection of the pattern of organization depends on the activity which is used in the class. So according to this activity, the teacher asks the students to work in pairs, which is very important, the idea of pair work. The pair includes two students. So in this case, we have pair work. The teacher asks the students to work in pairs to write their own predictions. So here we have also the idea of writing, that the students are not supposed to communicate orally only, but they are supposed to communicate orally and in a written way at the same time, because all language skills are emphasized equally in communicative language teaching. Next, the teacher announces that the students will be playing a game. He divides the class into small groups. The first idea that playing games or language games is one of the activities which is used in communicative language teaching in order to help the students to communicate with each other, that the teacher uses any activity that facilitates communication in the target language in the classroom, and communication and interaction. The teacher's aim is to create an interactive classroom in which the students communicate most of the time with each other and with the teacher. Another important idea that the teacher divides the class into groups. So we said that we have pair work as well as group work. The group in this case includes 5 people. Each group includes 5 people. He hands each group a deck of 13 cards. Each card has a picture of a piece of sport equipment, As the students identify the item, the teacher writes each name on the board. Next, the teacher has the students divide into groups of 3. Since there are 20 students, there are 6 groups of 3 students and 1 group of 2. One member of each group is giving a picture strip story, another activity which is used in the classroom to help the students to use language in a meaningful way to communicate with each other is the idea of picture strip story. There are 6 pictures in a column on a piece of paper with no words. The pictures tell a story. The students with the story shows the first picture to the other members of her group while covering the remaining 5 pictures. So this is another activity in which we have group work and in which we have the idea of communication and interaction to be done by the students. For the final activity of the class, the students are told that they will do a role play. Role play is another activity which is used to help the students to communicate and interact with each other actively and creatively inside the classroom. The students are supposed to create the language that they will say by the help of the teacher. The teacher gives them the situation and tells them the details of the situation. Then the students are supposed to interact with each other. The teacher tells them to get into groups of 4. They are to imagine that they are all employees of the same company. One of them is the other's boss. They are having a meeting to discuss what will possibly occur as a result of their company merging with another company. Before they begin, they discuss some possibilities together. They decide that they can talk about topics such as whether or not some of the people in their company will lose their jobs, whether or not they will have to move, whether or not certain policies will change, whether or not they will earn more money. The teacher asks students to remember that one of them is in each group is the boss. In this case, the teacher is emphasizing the idea of sociolinguistic competence. That is, you should not only know what to say, but how to say it. And the difference between communicating an idea to a colleague and communicating an idea to the boss. You should think about this relationship. If, for example, she makes a prediction that you don't agree with. For 10 minutes, the students perform the role play. The teacher moves from group to group to answer questions and offer any advice. One of the roles of the teacher in communicative language teaching is the role of the teacher as advisor. He provides the information to the students. He gives them the opportunity to ask questions before they start the process of communication and the activity of role play. So the teacher plays different roles: a communication facilitator, advisor, monitor, and also the teacher acts as a participant in the process of communication. Now we shall start with thinking about the experience of communicative language teaching. The first idea is related to the use of authentic material, and I have said that it's very important and it distinguishes the communicative approach. The teacher distributes a handout that has a copy of a sports column from a recent newspaper. Whenever possible, authentic language as it is used in the real context should be introduced. So the use of authentic materials is very important in communicative language teaching. 2. The teacher tells the students to underline the report's prediction and to say which ones they think that the reporter feels most certain of and which he feels least certain of. Being able to figure out the speaker's or writer's intention is part of being communicatively competent. That is, in order to have the ability to develop communicative competence, students need to know how to understand the text and to understand the writer's or speaker's intention. The teacher gives the students the directions for the activity in the target language. This is related to the idea of the students' native language and target language. The language of instruction is the target language. The target language is a vehicle for the classroom communication, not just the object of study. So it is very important to use the target language. So it is used as a language of instruction. 4. The students try to state the reporter's prediction in different words. One function can have many different linguistic forms. So, we mentioned that in the communicative approach we have different functions and we need to use language to express different functions. These functions or one functions can be explained in different forms, different linguistic forms. Since the focus of the course is on real language use, a variety of linguistic forms are presented together. The emphasis is on the process of communication rather than just mastery of language forms. So, here, the most important idea is the process of communication. This process of communication should be done by using correct language forms, but the focus is on communication, not on language forms themselves. 5. The students unscramble the sentences on the newspaper article. We talked about this. We mentioned that the students are supposed to arrange sentences in the correct order. Students should work with language at the discourse or supersentential level, above the sentence level. So, the students, or this is related to one aspect of communicative competence, which is discourse competence. We mentioned that discourse competence is related to cohesion and coherence, that is, grammatical connection and meaning connection of the sentences produced by the students. And the students should know how to work on the level or on the discourse level, which includes more than one sentence, and how to connect these sentences according to grammar and meaning. Those properties of language which bind the sentence together. 6. The students play a language game. Games are important because they have certain features in common with real communication events. There is a purpose to the exchange. Also, the speaker receives immediate feedback from the listener on whether or not she has successfully communicated. So one of the most important features of a communicative activity that it provides the students with feedback that from the students respond to what you say, you understand if you have explained yourself or the idea successfully or not. 7. The students are asked how they feel about the reporter's prediction. Students should be given an opportunity to express their ideas and opinions, of course, using the target language. 8. A student makes an error, the teacher and other students ignore it. Here we come to the idea of errors according to the communicative language teaching. Errors are not to emphasize too much in the communicative approach, or we can say they are not emphasized as we have the situation in audiolingualism in which correction of errors should be direct and immediate. It is very important for any one of you to know what is the way in which errors are corrected according to the communicative approach, because I told you that you will teach according to this approach. So how would you tackle students' errors in or during the lessons conducted according to CLT? You have to keep in mind that we have two types of activities. Activities that emphasize the practice of accuracy, in which we emphasize grammar and pronunciation. In this type of activity, the students are supposed to be corrected, and errors should be corrected, because here we aim to give the students knowledge about the correct grammatical structures and correct pronunciation of words. But in the other type of activities, which focuses on fluency, in which the students are communicating with each other, for example, language games or the idea of role play, in this case, the teacher should postpone the correction of errors till the end of the activity in order to give the students the chance to communicate their ideas, and then the teacher should correct the errors at the end of the activity. The teacher gives each group of students a short story and a task to perform. One of the teacher's major responsibilities is to establish situations likely to promote communication. So, the teacher's main role is to promote communication, to facilitate communication, to give the students different situations and activities in which they can use the target language communicatively. 10. The students work with a partner or partners to predict what the next picture in the strip story will look like. Communicative interaction encourages cooperative relationships among students. It gives students an opportunity to work on negotiating meaning. So here we have the idea of cooperative work, in which the students work together in pairs or groups in order to negotiate meaning, which is the role of the students according to the communicative approach. That is, the students is viewed as negotiator of meaning. They exchange meaning, they negotiate meaning. 11. The students do a role play. They are to imagine that they are all employees of the same company. The social context of the communicative event is essential in giving meaning to the utterance. Here, the emphasis is one of the important aspects of communicative competence, which is socio-linguistic competence. That is, the students are supposed to keep in mind the social relationship or the social status between participants when they communicate. In this case, we mentioned that communicative competence not only emphasizes what to say but also how to say it. 12. The teacher reminds the students that one of them is playing the role of the boss and that they should remember this when speaking to her. Learning to use language forms appropriately is an important part of communicative competence. The same point, which is emphasized in item 11. The teacher moves from group to group, offering advice and answering the questions. The teacher acts as a facilitator in setting up communicative activities and as an advisor during the activities. So here we are referring to the roles or to the different roles that the teacher acts in communicative language teaching. The students suggest alternative forms they would use to state a prediction to a colleague. In communicating, a speaker has a choice, not only about what to say, but also how to say it. We have explained this idea, but again, this is one of the distinct features of communicative activities, that the students have choices to decide what to say and how to say it. After the role play is finished, the students list relevant vocabulary. The grammar and vocabulary that the students learn follow from the function, situational context, and the roles of the interlocutors. In this case, the grammar that students learn, the vocabulary items that they learn are related to the communicative activities which are presented in the lesson. For their homework, the students are to find out about political candidates and to make a prediction about which one will be successful in the forthcoming election. Students should be given opportunities to work on language as it is used in authentic communication. They may be coached on strategies for how to improve their comprehension. So one of the students' tasks is to understand an idea and to know how to express themselves about this idea, let us say successfully or in a correct way. That's all in our lecture today, but I want you to keep in mind that the focus is only about thinking about the experience. The ideas which are presented before thinking about the experience are only for your general knowledge, and you are not required to memorize them. You are required to study the ideas which are presented and thinking about the experience. Thank you very much.